Let me just say this for the recording, because I forgot I started recording a little late. So we created this to-do form as a separate file, and then in our to-dos.js, we plopped it right there. Yeah, okay, so now, yeah, when we add a to-do, it's not doing anything, but well, it is reloading the page. That's not what, we don't want that to happen. In React, I'm just gonna say in React, it's just generally bad to reload the page. This is a single page application. We load the page once when we go to our website. So what we'll see, let's see how we fix that. So what I'm going to do, our form has a onSubmit event, and we give this a callback function. So I'm just going to call this handle submit. So I need to define this function, handle submit. This function is going to have this event param. Like when React is going to give us this parameter. I'm calling it E. You could maybe call it event. Let's call it event. That's a better name. That is like it's the submit event. And on a form, I can call this function event.prevent default. So this will, I mean, in a sense, this just prevents page from reloading. And then I could also do like a console.log, clicked, or like, okay, so I have this handle submit function. On my form, I have this onSubmit handle submit. Technically, this button is a submit button. So when I click this button, it actually triggers this form to submit, which we'll call this handle submit function. And now I do this prevent default. That should prevent the page from reloading. So now I go to my console, click add, it says clicked, and my page is no longer reloading. That's good, because I can like change my state, and adding isn't going to change my state. It's not going to reload the page. Okay, but the next thing I want to be able to do is, how do I grab this value in my form? Well, I'm going to do this with, I mean, this is, what do you think? This is changing. This is a value that changes. Any idea? State. State is the magic word there. Const. What do I call this? I'm going to call this state just whatever I called it in. Like, what is the name of my key? I think it's name, right? Yeah, always so many names. So the name of my to-do, that's what I want this to be. So call that name, set name, we'll use state. I'm going to just set that off as an empty string, because that's what I'm expecting this to be, is a string. I could say value equals name. Let's just have this say yo to start out with. So if I give this a value and set that equal to that state, I need to import use state. There's the initial state, but if I type on here, nothing's working because my state's not changing. So I need to do a onChange event. So here's a new event. So we're seeing two new events, the onSubmit event that's on our form. And then we're going to do an onChange that's on our input. This one also gets the event. It's going to be when this input is changed, meaning when I click a button. And what I can do is I can set my name. So if I were to look at this event, I could see the event dot target, that would be the input. And then I could grab the value. That's going to be the value of my input. And then we set my name to that. And then that changes the input. So there we go. Now my input's working. And voila, when I can now do a console.log. Like name value, just be name. I need to put my comma there. So I can do something like this, yo. I can add that name value is yo. So now in this handle submit, I'm able to get the value of my input. Okay. So now let's also just do like, let's say we wanted to, because we want that unique ID, just as another demo, let's say I want to come up with an ID here, an ID input. Could just essentially almost copy and paste this. This could be ID. So the value for this is going to be ID. And then here I would set ID. And yeah, that could be an empty string too. Sure, why not? And now I can have these separate inputs. Cool. So here is, well, let's just come up with my object right here. Let's say like let new to do equal, well, I'm going to have my name key, that's going to be equal to name. Then I can have my ID, that can be equal to the ID from my form. Complete, I think it makes sense maybe to set that to false. And just once again to show you, let's just do a console.log. A new to do. Just so we can see that this is working. So I could say some like, code that I'm not going to do any checking. It's kind of up to us to make sure we give it something unique on the ID. We're not going to do any checking to make sure that this ID is not taken. I'm just not going to like worry about that. So let's click add. There's my new to do. It's got a name. It's got the ID and it's got the complete. Sweet. So now I want to add this new to do to my to-do state in my to-dos component. That's a tongue twister. Add this new to do in my to-do state in my to-dos component. Okay. Well, yeah, my to-do state doesn't live here. So what I can do is let's write the function just like we did for all the other ones. I'm going to write this function, add to do. This is going to expect to be given a to do. So we could say let new to dos. How do we add a to do to our list? Well, I can just take my to do, add it, and then copy over that state and set to dos to be my new to dos. Right, that's how we did the add at the start of class today. Well, once again, I have this function that I really need to call here in my to-do form. So how do I do that? Well, I just do it like I did with the other ones. I pass this function to my form. Let's call that add to do yo. That's the prop of that's the name prop. And then the value is going to be the actual function. Cool. So now I can go into my to-do form and now I can call, well, I need to define props here, props. up there. And now I can do props.add to do yo and pass it that actual my new to do from my form, and then I hard coded this complete to be false. Sweet. Let's just review. So here's my function. Here's my function definition. It's expecting to get, some to do. I could call this X, but X better be an object that has the name key, the ID key, and a complete key. But let's call it to do because that makes more sense because that's what it is. We just add that to do to this. We're creating a new array right here. We're copying over our old array, adding the new one, and then we set our to-dos. That should update our UI. But we pass this add to do function to our to do form via props, and we're going to name that prop add to do yo. Go to our to do form. There's the add to do yo prop where we can actually pass it that new to do. All right, let's give this a test. So just refresh. Let's probably should not have that say yo by default. So I'm gonna go to my to-do form, switch that just to an empty string. So we need to do create. Let's give this an ID, some random number. Cool. And then since I give this an ID, I should be able to delete it. Let's add it again. I should be able to update it. But yeah, if I come in here and add something with the same ID, well, first of all, I'm going to get a warning. Hey, React's going to say, hey, we encountered two things with the same key. But also, if I update this, that's going to update both of them because their IDs are the same. And if I delete them, it's did that not delete that one? That's an interesting bug. What is going on here? Okay, this is an interesting bug. Feels like if I update it, it's like adding a new one. If I delete it, it's like my delete is now broken. Not sure what's going on there, but point is, this really is, if someone gives me the ID needs to be unique. I'm just going to say that. If it's not unique, I can't really expect things to work the way I expect them. Cool. One thing I think I want to change is when I add something, maybe I want to clear out my form. That's pretty straightforward. What I can do right here is I could just set name to be blank and set ID to be blank. So now when I add, it clears out those values. Lots going on here. But this is what we mean when we say CRUD actions. We can get to-dos. We can add a to-do. We can delete a to-do, and we can update a to-do. Now, something that's going to be a little more challenging that we won't get to today is if I wanted to update the name of the to-do. That is, out of all the CRUD actions, we're kind of cheating, not cheating, but we're kind of making this simple by making our update just toggle a Boolean. But to go in and update the name, that could be a little challenging. I could also in my to-do, maybe I don't need this ID anymore. Maybe spend just a tiny second on styling. So maybe, I think sometimes it's, even though it doesn't have to look good, just sometimes giving yourself like a border and some margin, just so you can see where your components kind of are living. So what I mean by that, I'm going to give this to-dos like a solid blue border. Let's make it kind of big. Or was it to do? Maybe I spelled that wrong. I think it was to do. Okay. There's my to do component. So this can be nice because I can like see where my components are. Like each blue square is going to be a to do component. I could go to my to dos, do like a class name here, equal to dos. Style that. Maybe give that doesn't need to have a font size, but just give it something like green. Where to-dos.
Better rename it to-dos instead of to-do.
Yeah, I need to get the S on that. So that's my to-dos component. I'm also just going to give that some padding. So that looks margin and padding. So everything, and it kind of shows where my components are living. So my green component, that's my green border, that's my to-dos. And then within there, I have my to-do components. I have 2 to-do components. Could also do the same thing with my form. Last name equals do form. All right, and then I could style that just really quickly. And let's do, I don't know, orange, lovely orange. It's my lovely styling. To-do form, let's save that. Oh, I need to save my to-do form. So this can be like that it kind of shows you where things are living, everything like in the group, like my to-do form lives in my to-dos, so forth. You can also use your component inspector. Now we actually have some, a little more stuff going on here. So I have my app, I have my to-do form. You can go in, you can look at the state, come in here and change it, see update. It's a good little debugging tool. I can come into my to-dos, can see their state. That just has the show button state. But I can also see, like what I'm getting from props. I'm getting complete, false, name, and these functions. So this can be a useful tool. It's taking a second. Cool. I think, let's see here. I'm going to do a get add dot, get commits -m. Are there any questions on this? We're going to spend a lot more time with CRUD. It's like your first hackathons is going to be something like do CRUD actions on something in React. Then your second hackathon is going to be do CRUD actions on a couple things with React and with the database. So when I click add, and hit refresh, that should be there because it should have saved to the database. So I'm kind of, I've kind of like changed up the homework today, so I'm kind of doing it right now. Let me kind of show you what I'm thinking. I want to do a flashcard app, not memory. This isn't the memory game. It's like a flashcard where you have like a question and an answer. Kind of like the memory game where you could maybe do this as a grid. But what I want you to do is, and let me know if you have any questions, because I'm just kind of coming up with the requirements right now. So you're going to hard code your array of cards. Now I'm going to suggest you use this format. Like a card is going to have an ID. That's going to be a unique number. Have a question and an answer. Those will be Booleans. And then those will be strings. And then you're going to have like this correct Boolean. So a way to mark it if you got it right or wrong. Now you can come up with your own way of doing this. This is just a suggestion. You could add some things, but this is how I would recommend to do it. So you're going to render your questions on the React app. I'm going to say, bonus, as a bonus, you could do like the fake API call like we did in lecture. The update's going to be very similar to what we did in lecture today, where it's like you're toggling whether or not you got it correct. You're going to be able to do delete, remove a card, create, add a card, and be able to toggle, between the showing the question and answer. Now I'm going to say, recommend, just as a hint, do this as state in a card component. If you don't do this as state in a card component, you're going to have, and you don't do a card component, you would have to maintain the state in your here, like in your array of cards. But if you do it here in state in your card component, you can just do it there, and then each card can have that own state. Does that kind of like each to do has its own state of whether or not to show these buttons? So it'd be something very similar where you'd have you could have like a toggle feature. This would be the question, those could be the questions, and then that would be the answer. So it has its own state. Style. Is there anything else you kind of want to throw on here? I'm going to give you, this is going to be, I'm going to give you for the weekend. So this is going to be due on Monday. So you're going to have today, tomorrow, the weekend. It's for bonus type stuff. I really want you to review, filter, map, review those functions, review, cloning objects and arrays, right? We see we're doing that quite a bit in React. Like if I go to my to-dos, like here I'm cloning an object, updating the complete. Here I'm cloning the array. I'm also going to say review use state. This should give you an opportunity to really get familiar with use state. What else? Can you think of anything else that's want me to throw in here? I got a good one. This one, JS. That's pretty generic. And tomorrow, maybe come up. So tomorrow we'll also, I want to go over the memory game and we'll talk. But I kind of just want to do like a general review. I think we can use the memory game to do like a review of React. And the reason I did the to-do list first, I think that the to-do list is actually easier than the memory game. So I think the memory game was a little more challenging than the to-do list. So it'll be a good thing to actually go over tomorrow. Questions? It's not really a bonus. This is going to be a bonus for you if the better you understand these things. I'm also just going to throw in here functions. So many functions, right? Here's a function. It's taking a function. It's just nested functions. JavaScript there's so many functions inside of functions, returning functions, taking functions. So sweet. Let's go ahead. Let's take lunch. Let's just come back. Let's call it 2:50, or should we just say not 2:50? Should we just say 2? I'll give you an extra 10 minutes. Come back at 2. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool. Have a good one.